Waiting for the box. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Barrow Borough Council's Housing Management Forum. My name is Kevin Hamlin. I'm a Borough Councillor and also Chairman of the Management Forum. Can I remind everybody the arrangements? It's important that all participants conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. Please put your mobile phone on silent. Participants must ensure that microphones are muted throughout the meeting. And if you wish to speak, you must raise your hand via the raise hand facility in Zoom, and only mute when your microphone. Only unmute your microphone when invited to speak. Please do not interrupt other speakers. Members are reminded that they should not have alternative communications lines open. If members do lose connection to the meeting, we'll adjourn for 10 minutes to assist them reconnecting. I would like to remind everybody present that this meeting is being broadcast to the entire world. The whole of the meeting will be recorded, except where there's confidential exempt items. To vote on matters, decisions will be made by affirmation of the meeting unless there's any dissent. In which case, a move and a second will be requested, and a Democratic Services Officer, Paula Westwood, will conduct the roll call of votes. Formality is over with. Let's get on to the business. Part 1, apologies for absence and attendance of substitute members. Paula?
Thanks, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Burley, so if the rest of the members could just respond by saying present, please. Councillor Hamilton?
Present.
Barrow?
Present.
Blizzard?
Present.
Brooke?
Present.
Gorn?
Present.
McClure?
Present.
McEwen?
Present.
And Robson?
Present.
And tenant representatives, Mandy Anderson?
Present.
And James Christie?
Present.
And the officers, Jan Sharp, Assistant
Present.
Director Housing, thank you. Jan, have we got apologies from the remaining 2 tenant reps?
I think they're the 2 that are trying to get in on Zoom. Let's wait and see if they arrive.
Okay.
I'll put their apologies in.
Okay, thank you. Back to you then, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Number 2, urgent items. To note any items which the Chairman considers to be in urgent nature. There is none. Delegations. Receive up notice from members who wish to move any delegated matter, non-delegated, which will be decided by the majority of members present and the voting at the meeting. Our mission of press and public, to consider whether the public and press should be excluded from the meeting during consideration of any items on agenda, which there is none. Declarations of interest. Receive declarations by members or for co-optees of interest in respect of items on this agenda. Members are reminded that in accordance with the revised code of conduct, they are required to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or any registrable interests which have not already been declared in the Council's Register of Interest. Not forgetting it is a criminal offence not to declare disclosable pecuniary interest, either at the registrar or in this meeting. Apologies. Members may, however, also decide interest of clarity and transparency to declare at this point in the meeting any such disclosable pecuniary interest which are already declared in the registrar, as well as any other registrable or other interests. Any declarations of interest? I've just gone through all that lot for nothing. Thank you very much.
It was really exciting though, Kev. Well read.
Oh, thank you. Number 6, confirmation of minutes. To confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of September 2020. Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Public participation. Any member of the public who wishes to ask a question, make representations or present a deputation or petition at this meeting should apply to do so no later than 5 o'clock. Well, there hasn't been no request for public participation. Now get on to the good part. For decision number agenda item 8, housing maintenance investment budget 2021-2022. Consider the housing maintenance investment budget for 2021-2022. May I invite the Assistant Director of Housing, Jan Sharp, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm bringing the housing maintenance investment budget for recommendations that it be approved. To give you some background, we had an asset management strategy carried out for 2020-2025, and it established a number of investment priorities that we need to do to maintain our decent home standard. To include, we ensure that properties are safe, energy efficient and weatherproof. Investments on properties are prioritised on a just-in-time and worst first basis. And to ensure that tenants and leaseholders, as we always do, are consulted and their views considered, and to work collaboratively with other providers and contractors. I could read it all through to you. I'm presuming everybody's read it. Obviously, we work closely with Procure Plus Holdings, as I'm sure you're aware. The arrangements continue to be an effective delivery method, providing value for money compared with historical costs. The new arrangements with PPH offer additional savings on fees. For those of you that are not aware, Procure Plus enable us to access services and equipment at a really good price. Procure Plus are involved in the procurement of a huge amount of services and equipment, and that enables them to access them at a really low cost price. So it saves us an incredible lot of money. And we also have a quality assurance with going through PPH. If there's any issues that arise, we have PPH to back us up with any issues. For example, if we've got boilers that weren't performing effectively, we have some callback with PPH as we've procured them through PPH. The asset management strategy identifies the results of the stock condition which we had in 2019. And obviously the long and medium term investments and our short ones are to ensure that the properties are safe, energy efficient and weatherproof, and to carry out improvements, as I said previously, on a just-in-time worst first basis. Sorry, it's a little bit of a mouthful that. Obviously that means that if there's a fault identified that needs rectifying on an estate, we would target the worst properties that are in need of the repair first. That's not to say they won't all be done, but we would target the worst first. The strategy confirms the stock is generally in good condition, and I think members will have seen that, and our residents, that we have a continuous planned maintenance programme, and I think some of the estates are really looking extremely well looked after. It's ironic that on some estates it always used to be the properties that were sold that always seem to appear to look better repaired, kept up to date. We are now finding that it's properties that aren't sold that now shine on our estate, so it's quite an interesting turnaround to what we've had in the past. Obviously we're going to complete repairs and in accordance with the list, replace 150 central heating boilers, replace main roof coverings, etc., as listed in 3.3. The investment programme is shown in Appendix A of this report, and it follows out the priorities set out in the asset management strategy. We have shared the plan with tenant and leaseholder forum group members. We've got our tenants forum reps here today. The alternative to not improving to approve the investment budget would be to let our properties standard deteriorate, and we would be at increased risk of the non-compliance with regard to gas safety. failure to meet the decent home standards, and increase the risk of litigation as there is a pre-action protocol for housing conditions claims. The budget contributes to the council's vision for Barrow to be a great, Borough, to be a great place to live and work and visit, and it will assist us to meet our priority of place to create a vibrant, safe and welcoming place where people want to live. The 21-22 HRA budget, housing revenue budget, is presented separately on the agenda. As you know, we've got a separate budget to the general fund, and the housing maintenance investments will be undertaken within budget. A total of £5,156,006 is shown in Appendix A. A programme volatility will be managed through the earmarked reserve, and I think there's had to be some volatility and changes. As you'll be aware, COVID has presented us with considerable challenges with our planned maintenance and our repairs. Planned maintenance has been carried out as much as possible. However, we are behind with our schedule, mainly due to staff being furloughed at the contract firms that we use. Tenants obviously suffering from COVID, shielding, self-isolating. So we've not been able to access the properties to carry out the work. From the initial lockdown, we worked very little. We are now managing to carry out some of the work, but obviously we've got to respect our tenants if they don't feel comfortable. But we're carrying out as much as we possibly can. Again, with gas safety compliance, obviously we've got a duty to carry out annual gas safety checks to all our properties. This has proved difficult again with COVID, with people self-isolating, shielding, suffering from COVID. We've carried out as many as we possibly can. Obviously, we have to catch up with the ones we can't do at certain periods. Some we've not managed to access at all. However, we've done what we can, and as with regard to legislation, providing we have made every attempt to access the property to carry out the gas safety check, we are covered. However, we're working actively all the time to ensure we are accessing as many properties as possible to carry out the gas safety checks. Obviously, lockdown has posed considerable problems for our repairs. Since lockdown in March, we have only carried out emergency repairs, which involve gas, electric, health and safety risks, and that's continued throughout COVID and out of hours. Responsive repairs, that's repairs that are on a 7-day, 14-day, 30-day, have had to be put on hold, and obviously our contractor has had to furlough a considerable number of their staff. But we were, just as the second lockdown came, we were starting to work on the backlog of responsive repairs. However, that had to be drawn to a close as we were brought into a second lockdown. I have to say our tenants have been very understanding in the main around this. We do have some that it seems they're oblivious that we are in lockdown, that they feel their repairs should be done. However, the majority of tenants have been understanding and worked with us through this difficult time.
Thanks, Jan, for that comprehensive report. Absolutely. Any questions for the members?
Don't start asking budgets.
Can Des?
Des.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Jan, how are we doing with void properties?
Void properties, well, the first series of lockdown, the government, we were not allowed to let properties, Des, in the first lockdown. However, since the first lockdown ended, lettings has continued. We've continued with our void properties, carrying out the work. Obviously, rental is our income, Des, and if all those weeks we didn't let properties, we were losing considerable amount of rental income. And we've also got a need for accommodation, because homelessness, as well as people on the waiting list, we rely on our properties. But we're now successfully letting properties. That in itself can prove difficult. We always did accompanied viewings. We used to have a very concise sign-up process where it would take an hour and a half to sign somebody up to explain all the implications and all the information. We've had to really cut that down. We just provide the applicant a key to look around the property themselves, and then if they agree they want to sign. We have got the screened interview rooms, so we are able to simply sign the tenancy agreement, sign the housing benefit form, and everything else is done via a telephone call and posting out all the information to them, which isn't ideal. We appreciate that, but it's the best of what we can do until such time as we can open our doors. So we are successfully letting properties, Des. Thank goodness. Can I just add that homelessness, because that links in with letting properties. They have been full on since lockdown. Had 400, just under 400 contacts to the department for advice and assistance by people that are homeless or potentially homeless. We've accommodated 50 people in, or 50 family stroke single people in temporary accommodation during that period as well. We've also had an increase in domestic violence cases that have presented through COVID, as I'm sure some members are aware. In fact, it's very difficult to quantify homelessness. We've had 4 families of this week alone in need of temporary accommodation, all with 3 or 4 children, which has proved difficult. The team have also worked we have made some good inroads with private landlords. We've got some good contacts. We don't want to get to the situation where everybody that's homeless in temporary accommodation takes up all our vacant properties, because we've got 1,400 people patiently waiting on the waiting list for accommodation. So we try to access private rented where possible, and that has been successful during COVID. I've got to say, some of the private landlords have really supported us, and that's worked well. So it's been all about partnership working throughout the recent months, and I think it's really strengthened it. You know, I think the county and the council have worked together a lot more closely than they ever have done in this pandemic, if one thing good comes out of it.
Thanks, thanks, John. You did expand that from void properties to the homeless. So that's
no, but it all links in. It all links in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, and it just leads to further and further questions.
Right.
Was I right in thinking that the gas certificates, we know they've got to be issued, that's law for health.
Yeah.
And we had to go to court to access 4 houses.
Yes.
To issue them gas certificates.
To engage, what we have, if we can't successfully go access the property and there's no COVID related reasons, we go to court and get a warrant to change the locks and gain access. And we've had to do that on 4 cases. That isn't down to COVID, that's regular. We have a core number of people that seem to ignore all the communication that's sent to them. They don't seem to see the importance of a gas safety check. And dare I say it, that sometimes it's quite obvious why they haven't allowed us in when we get away and when we access the properties. And unfortunately, we had one a couple of weeks ago that we couldn't access, and the poor lady died, and she was still in the property. She'd been there several weeks, and I think some of the neighbours were quite upset. But I think that is another side effect to COVID, that people are staying at home, so people aren't always picking up that they haven't seen people. We've had 2 or 3 that we've identified that went in care homes about 6 months ago and nobody knew. And we're wondering where they are. And when all comes to all, they've been in a care home. So there's lots of hidden things that have come up during COVID things that you don't think about. Well, it's the first time we've been in a pandemic, isn't it? It's been certainly a learning curve to how we work around all the issues. And I've got to say as well that, well, I won't say it because you'll go, the staff have been really, really good and supportive and flexible, and we've tried to solve all the issues that we can do to try and keep our service going.
Thanks, Jan. Any further questions from members? Well, there's two recommendations. Approve the investment budget shown in Appendix A. Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Number 2, approve delivery of planned investments through the Procure Plus framework. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you. Which takes us on to the next item. Housing revenue account 2021 to 2022. Mrs. Sharp again, please.
Yeah. To give you some background, 2021 was our first year after a 4-year social rent policy that we had to decrease the rents by 1%. 4 years were difficult. We had obviously austerity. We had to trim our cloth, as they say. But thanks to really good support from Sue Roberts and our accountant and Les and Bex, and we all worked together and we managed to get through it without having to do anything too drastic. You know, we managed by any vacant posts we didn't fill. We cut back on some services that were probably a luxury, should I say, you know, just tiny little, we chipped away at it and we managed to get through it. So I'm really proud that we've managed to get through it. But obviously, this year, 2021, we have been able to put the rents up by the CPI and plus 1%. So this is in place for at least 5 years. But obviously, alongside that, we are still selling properties by right to buy, slowly but surely, trickling away. We've done 7 so far this year, I think. But obviously we don't only lose the property when we do a right to buy, we also lose the rental income. So, and it obviously reduces the number of properties that are available for people to live in. So we always have to mitigate that and when we consider about it. We're continuing to control our expenditure because we've got a rent increase. We're not on a spend. And we're always looking at ways to generate income where possible. One positive has been that despite COVID and lockdown and the results, we have managed to maintain our rental income, and our rent arrears last week were 66,000 less than they were the same time last year. I think as many of our tenants are benefit dependent, benefits haven't been affected during COVID. So we've managed to maintain our income. People that have been on universal credit, the staff have worked incredibly hard to speak to people. Obviously we can't bring people in, but there's been regular phone calls, texts, letters. We've had Joe Hughes, our money management officer, targeting our vulnerable people that have been identified to support them, not only by rent but everything else. But we've tried to ensure that we've kept close contact with people. Obviously we've not evicted anybody this year. That isn't permitted during COVID. The courts haven't been giving us any court hearings, and that continues during lockdown. Not that we would want to evict anybody anyway during COVID. However, we've ensured that we've not got to that stage, but we are carrying some tenants with considerable debt at the moment, and that will have to obviously be addressed when we come out of COVID. I think it's quite explicit, the expected outcome, the balance on the budget, without going through all the figures. There's nothing alarming. We've got our head above water, I'm proud to say. Again, Sarah Mortimer, our housing accountant, keeps me tightly under wraps. You'll note that the rents have been put up by the increases listed there. So between 2018 up to 20, you know, they've gone up approximately just under £3. Obviously, because we haven't had a rent increase for 4 years, we've had a decrease, so the differentiation isn't huge. HRA fund balance been assessed by Director of Resources. Sue signed it all off. We've also increased the garages by the same amount as the rent increase. We still have a demand for garages, and we have an active waiting list. Do have a problem with people paying at times. They don't seem to realise it's a weekly rent, but we address that. People seem to think they only need to pay it every 3 months, and 3 months in arrears, you know, not 3 months in advance. But we are quite proactive with regard to that. Service charges, we increase them as we need to. That's the staircase cleaning and the communal area cleaning, which tenants pay for. That enables us to keep a reasonable standard of the blocks. And from tenant feedback, tenants are quite happy with that. It enables the environment to be kept in a clean, reasonable condition in the main. Yeah. Service and facility charges for dispersed and furnished properties. Dispersed are our temporary emergency accommodation, which is within our stock. And the charges are increased as the same as the communal cleaning areas are increased. We've currently got 22 units of temporary accommodation, which are a considerable number more than we would normally have. However, with COVID, anybody that presents as homeless, saying they have nowhere to go, we have to provide them with temporary accommodation. Regardless of whether or not they're ineligible for council housing or through the homeless system. So we had to increase a few 1-bed flats to be temporary accommodation, basic, you know, with just the basic amenities in. But that's continually being reviewed. We were hoping to reduce the number, and then lockdown happened again. And I don't want the housing homeless team to be in a situation where we've got to accommodate somebody and we've got nowhere to accommodate them. Because obviously, bed and breakfast has always been our fallout if we needed it. But obviously, a lot of the hotels are closed. And we could have somebody in temporary accommodation for up to 102 days with the new homeless legislation. So we are carrying a few at the moment. And of course, that again brings loss in rent if they're not accommodated. But then we've got to have accommodation there in case somebody presents. So it's catch-22 how we balance it. You know, obviously the girls work as hard as possible not to put somebody in temporary accommodation. And we haven't gone into overload, but if you're taking an out of hours call at 3 in the morning and you've got nowhere to put anybody, I've been there. Yeah. It's not easy. So, but that's constantly reviewed. We're looking at bringing in charges because in respect of resale, this was agreed last year, but what with COVID, Beck's been on maternity leave. I'm just making excuses, but the valid ones. And we haven't filled Beck's post, business support manager. I've been covering a considerable amount of that. That hasn't been actioned, but it's definitely going to be actioned this coming year. Something had to give, I'm afraid.
Which, if members can't remember, it was administration charge for people wanting to buy their housing because we weren't charging, were we?
Yeah. And we also get people that are reselling the property and they're wanting information or the conveyancer is or whatever. And it's all hours spent by business support staff. So we're looking at bringing, not for profit, just to cover the cost of the work that's required. Yeah. Adelphi Court, that again is one of our success stories, which I won't bore you with again. But the contract has been extended to May next year. This is this year, sorry. This is due to supporting people in the tendering process with Cumbria County Council for the support provider. Cumbria County Council fund the support that's provided at Adelphi Court by Richmond Fellowship. And until Richmond Fellowship are aware that they're going to be awarded the contract for a further 5 years, they can't obviously commit to extend the contract. But obviously we've made an agreement with Richmond Fellowship. We will give them a temporary extension to May, and hopefully the tendering process will be finished then, and they're keen to sign for another 5 years. We're keen for them to sign up. It's been a good success, and it's providing accommodation in the town for people with enduring mental health, which, as we all know, there isn't a lot of facilities for them, and it enables them to live independently in self-contained properties, and with support to help them sustain the tenancy. And yeah, there's been an odd hiccup, but there's always hiccups with any of our lets, but it's really worked well for us. So that's the story. Obviously, sorry.
Can I just ask, and then I'm thinking on about the homeless.
All right.
When the housing staff are walking up Portland Walk, hypothetically, does anybody from our staff approach those pretending to be homeless?
Yeah. Yeah, if we get a phone call from somebody or one of us goes out in town and sees them, we approach them and ask them to contact our service. But in fact, Kevin, the 3 that were there the other week all had tenancies. One of which we just provided, they were begging for professional beggars, should I say. It does make it difficult because obviously people see them and think, as they do, what are the council doing about these people? But last week, Caroline got a call and she went out, walked out. I went out one dinner time and saw somebody and stopped them, and they couldn't answer my questions, or they wouldn't answer my questions. They didn't want to take a phone number from me for our service. They just wanted some pocket money.
Wonderful.
That's not, that's not to say we don't have a rough sleeper problem in Barrow as such. We have more sofa surfers who are sofa surfing inappropriately. But we've got a 24/7 service. We've promoted it on our website, on social media. Please contact us. Contact us before you get into, as soon as possible, so we can do some prevention work, which is what it's all about. But individuals still choose to take advantage of the COVID and it's emotional blackmail, isn't it, for people?
Yeah.
Anyway, so you told me off for raising homelessness before that I'd gone off on a tangent. So
yeah, well, we were talking about something different before, weren't we? Now we're on about the.
I'm only joking. Antisocial behaviour. Obviously, that spiralled in the fine weather and COVID. We do have an antisocial behaviour service level agreement with ASB Action, as I'm sure some of you councillors know, that we can seek advice and they will assist us with court cases so that we can go to court and get an injunction to prevent antisocial behaviour occurring. Obviously, we don't do that lightly. There's a lot of work goes into it before we get to that stage. However, some people are just not capable of behaving themselves and they don't think we're going to take legal action to that extent. For it in perspective, I think last year we did 3 antisocial behaviour injunctions over the year. During the first lockdown, which was when the summer was with us, and we did 4 antisocial behaviour injunctions in that period. And it was it was highlighted because of the weather, drinking, people at home a lot of the time, and it really caused a lot of upset to people. So we needed to be seen to be taking proactive action. Saying that, antisocial behaviour injunction can cost us 2,000, you know, and with court costs and everything else. But it's very successful. An injunction has, you must behave yourself, you must not, you cannot, you are not able to go to certain areas. And as soon as there's a breach, they are put into prison, into custody overnight for a hearing within 24 hours. And it is effective. It is a deterrent. We always publicise when we've actually done one and taken action. And we work closely with the police to do that. Obviously, we need there's a lot of work goes into getting an injunction, preparing for an injunction, but we're very successful. And it sends out a message to our residents that we won't tolerate antisocial behaviour.
Can I just stop you there, Jan? Councillor McEwen, the Sheriff of Ormsdale, has got his hand up for a long time.
Oh, was he? Sorry, I couldn't see it. He's on mute.
You muted, Bill.
Press the button, Bill.
Right, thank you. I forgot what I was going to say. That's why I was going back to when you said there were 7 houses that were sold. Is that last? And just off the top of your head, how much stock have we got left now? I've got 2 questions.
Just under 2,500. Sorry.
Oh, still 2.5. That's fine. My other point is there any serious rent arrears through the pandemic since it started? You know, with furlough and people getting laid off and such and stuff like that?
No, not at the moment, Bill. I mean, that's the benefit of having a lot of our tenants on benefit, which sounds ironic, doesn't it? Benefits haven't been unpaid. Universal credits continue to be paid. The staff have worked very hard on people in receipt of universal credit, that they pay their rent. That is one thing fortunate. There hasn't been a lot of things to spend the money on other than...
That's good.
Sorry.
You're popular, you're popular.
That's because my work's phone switched through to my mobile. That's why. They don't get the message. So that is one thing. So actually our rent arrears have dropped, Bill, in the same period as last year.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
The only thing I would say is that I think from our perspective, as furlough ends, we're expecting a different client group approaching as people that have worked or always managed the money, that are suffering serial financial hardship, can't afford the mortgage, not benefit savvy, you know, that are going to need a lot of guidance and a lot of hand-holding, and they will find it difficult. And the homeless team are expecting that as well.
Lovely.
Just to say that private landlords haven't been evicting either, but sorry about this.
Good.
Onto your phone.
That's great. Thanks very much. I see you're busy, Jan. Thanks very much. That's great. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Chair.
Never reads normally.
Yeah. Des?
Yes, Jan, you mentioned about some success with antisocial behaviour. I think, well, not just council properties, but other properties as well. Experienced it personally myself lately. Yes, so I'm glad to see you having some kind of success at catching somebody doing it. But I try to get as much publicity about antisocial behaviour, from my point of view, in the local media. I wondered if we could do the same with you, because you seem to be having some success.
Obviously, I think it would be probably public protection that would probably action that bill because of the noise disturbance and the neighbour nuisance in the private sector. It's something that we could promote. I will speak to Graham Barker with regard to putting something on social media. perhaps we could do a joint one with regard, I mean, I'm not saying we only focus on council tenants, but that's what we pick up, but you have to be considerate to all your neighbours, don't you, regardless. So I will speak to Graham Barker about it and link in with Caroline Barber from 32 West, Des.
Yeah, well, I'm glad really, because it's not housing from my point of view, it was a community centre. And that's why I was trying to get all the information from everyone to try and blot it out once and for all. We've got a lot of Banksys at the place at the moment using spray paint, and it's no good, especially when you try to keep things going voluntary and raising money and all that. And that's why I just thought, we're talking about antisocial behaviour.
Sorry, Chair, have you been in touch with the community policing team, Des?
I've been in touch with the police, and the police said to me, we're not sending an officer out because it's not a burglary or it's so-and-so. It doesn't come under that heading of being something serious. And that's true. That was up in Penrith at Carlton Hall. When I got through, and they transferred me to someone for the Barrow region. So, it's at the moment, I've left the graffiti as it is, as a deterrent. And some nice residents in the village, if we manage to sort something out about CCTV, have offered to contribute towards it. So that shows you how much they strongly feel about it. And it wasn't just me, it was someone else's property in the village. The same thing had happened to them.
So have you had the graffiti removed, Des, or are you saying you're leaving it as a deterrent?
I'm leaving it at the moment because it'll be in somebody's face. Once you remove it, they'll be back doing it. So at the moment, I'm leaving it as it is on the walls of the community centre and the shutters, on the off chance that it does get home with people. Because I'm just, as I said in the press, I'm just about fed up to it in here. I've had it, I've done how many different things, and this latest thing was just, thing that's just really homed it home to me. But I was a bit disappointed. I think the person that lives in the village that had the same done to her property, she's been in touch. They've been in touch with the local police, and they're supposed to be getting PCSOs to keep an eye on the situation. But we'll just have to see.
Okay.
Thanks, Des.
If there's anything we can do, just contact us and we'll give you some advice.
Right.
Where are you up to, Jen, on the report?
I don't know. I'm on graffiti now.
Phone a friend.
We were up to antisocial behaviour. So our priorities for 21-22, obviously it's to keep our head above the water and maintain a balanced housing revenue account. As I've said, the positive news, we can put the rents up for our finances, but we still obviously need to be aware that we're selling properties fairly regularly. Obviously dare I mention our CX management system, we've got over a lot of our teething problems. We're still obviously, like with any management system that was newly brought in, we're progressing. Obviously it hasn't been as progressed as it would with Bex being on maternity leave, but we've managed to chip away at it, and the progress will be increased when she returns at the end of March. We made a decision not to fill the business support manager's post. Bex had everything so well organised before she went off, and to bring a temporary business support manager in for 9 months, we didn't want to take the risk of them undoing everything that she'd really worked hard to put in place. So a decision was made. We've got 2 staff that are helping, and I'm chipping in. And Bex, bless her, is still doing some work from home whilst on maternity leave as we need her. So they have KIT days, which is keep in touch days when you're on maternity leave, and she's been kind enough to organise a keep in touch days around when I need her. for budgets and rent increases. So I'm very fortunate to have good staff around me to help me get through that period.
Not only good, but they're also dedicated.
Yeah. I'll, you know, I'm a real hard task worker, you know that, don't you? Obviously, we're continuing with universal credit. It's a continuous rollout of people change benefits, and we do whatever we can to mitigate the effect. Work very hard with our most vulnerable clients to try and enable them to manage it. Obviously, we've lost some of our link with DWP to a certain extent, as they now manage the universal credit. When it used to be housing benefit, we had a lot, we were able to access information more, but obviously with GDPR and all the restrictions. But we are fortunate in that we do have a good DWP partnership manager, Judith Wilkinson in Cumbria, who works really closely with us, and again, I'm fortunate that she is there, and we try and work together to mitigate the effects of vulnerable people struggling with universal credit. It's difficult, but it's something that's here and we've got to deal with as best we can, and try and work with our clients. So rent collection, yeah, it wasn't affected as we thought, as badly as we thought it would be. But as I say, we do have tenants that do work, and what with 0-hour contracts ending and premises closing, a lot of our tenants that do work are on low income jobs on 0 hours, and we've got businesses closing down, businesses going bust. So we await to see what the effect will be with furloughing and people losing their jobs, and our new cohort of people approaching us for help with housing that can't afford the mortgages. Obviously the mortgage honeymoons will be phased out and we've still got to pay it. So we're not being pessimistic, but we're being realistic, I think is the term, that we're not sure how it's going to happen.
Thanks, John.
So, water rate. Well, we haven't got Alan here, bless him, Alan McIntosh, which was his favourite subject. We are continuing to collect water rate. It was agreed by exec, and we will get commission of 162,480, providing we manage to maintain the collection rate. And that mitigates a considerable effect it has on our rent arrears. We also work very hard that everybody that is signed for a tenancy or has a tenancy where possible is on a supported tariff, which is a reduced tariff. So it has enabled some people that previously couldn't afford it to afford it. So again, we've got Joe Hughes, the money management officer, who accesses all our new tenants and anybody that's struggling. We're aware that a lot of our tenants really can't afford to live independently. However, they've no option and they want that. So what we do, we have a money management advice interview with them, well over the phone at the moment. And that is to help people manage the limited income effectively as possible. That's with utilities, lots of your water rates, what's available for them to apply for, telephone, mobile phone contracts, supermarkets when they have the whoops days, anything to try and assist them to manage the money effectively, to try and sustain the tenancy. So I'm just up to recommendations now.
Well, we do the recommendations, so calm down, Tiger.
Right, I'll let you do that then. Sorry, we went off the plot a little bit there, but I'm trying to give you a good background because we haven't had an HMF for some time. Sorry, over to you, Chair.
Just thinking about the things that you actually do, not only collect the rent or whatever and make sure the houses are good, you're doing the rent collection, you're doing debit, you're doing homelessness. Can I just ask, Jan, over the Christmas time, well, during this COVID, how many staff have been furloughed and the other people stepping in or whatever? They've done absolutely wonderful.
Well, we've Not furloughed, but we have had some staff since COVID lockdown. I had some staff on the community hub helping pick up the phones and ringing vulnerable people. Our receptionists, when we were closed, moved over to the community hub based at the hospice in Duke Street, the hospice centre. Brian, one of our area surveyors, went and trained at the cemetery to do cremations. He worked there to help out in the first lockdown. I've got a member of staff at the moment helping with street care. I've got to say we've had a really cracking lot of staff that have volunteered to help out. We've got staff currently working on the business grants. They're based in, one of the teams is based in our offices. So I'm proud to say that housing have helped out where we can. And it's thanks to the staff. And they've enjoyed it, and it's been good, for people to, so we've helped out where we can, I'm pleased to say.
Thank you. Would you like to say something, Mandy or Jim?
Well, I'd like to say, like Jan's saying about the staff, how they've worked through the pandemic, but she also needs to include herself and Caroline, Wagstaff and everybody, because they've worked really hard to keep everything going. Well, they don't give themselves the credit, do they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely spot on.
Oh,
Thank you.
well, it's only right, isn't it?
Yeah, we have worked hard. I must
Yeah,
admit.
well, credit where credit's due.
Thanks, Mandy. Any questions of the assistant director? Go on, Jim. We can't see you though, that's a problem.
Desi's comments about the police. I mean, I've had the same problem. You ring them up and they say, oh, it's not our priority, that. I mean,
Can I just stop you, Jim? We're getting a little bit too thin there. This is going out live.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and I don't want to start whatever. So if you can phone Des up after, but I don't want it going out on the internet that we're complaining or whatever, because we've got good partnership.
I can discuss that with Jim outside the meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we don't. No problem. So with no further questions, we've got. Is it all right, Paul, if I take all these recommendations in one, or to do them separately, seeing it's a budget?
No, as long as you're clear that you're taking them all together and everyone's happy with all of them, then you can take it as one.
Right, is everybody happy if we take it as one recommendation?
Agreed, Chair.
Yeah.
Agreed. So everyone agree with the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. And that, good people, is that it? So thanks for your attendance. And you can answer your phone now, Jan.